Hey, this is Corinna Bench, the farmer's wife at Shared Legacy Farms. In today's video, I am going to teach you how to can peaches in a water bath canner. This is something I do every summer with my family. I do about 3 loads a year. That's about 21 quarts, and that's enough to last me through the winter. So I'm going to walk you through this process step by step. Step 1 is to make sure that you have the right peaches. You want to find free stone peaches. This means the pit is not connected to the pulp of the peach. Red Haven peaches are the variety of peach that most canners use, and you'll need about a half bushel to do 1 to 2 loads of peaches. You also want to make sure the peaches are ripe when you're canning them. Not overly ripe, but just perfect. If they're unripe, they're going to taste unripe. And if they're too ripe, they'll be a hot mess and mushy and really hard to handle. Next, you need to wash the peaches. Then, prepare your jars by washing them well. I prefer to use wide mouth jars because it's easier to fit your hand in there later when you're packing the peaches in, but regular mouth jars will also work. You'll need to use almost all of your stove burners, so clear the kitchen area and make some space. Are you ready? Fill the water bath canner, about 3/4 full with water, and bring it to a simmer on your large stove burner. Place the rack inside the canner and put the empty clean mason jar quarts upside down on the rack. The simmering water and steam will sterilize the jars. You can also skip this step and just sterilize them in your dishwasher right before canning. The goal is to have sterilized jars. The next step is to prepare the sugar solution. I used a light syrup of 2 cups of sugar to 6 cups of water. You may need to double or triple this to have enough syrup for multiple batches, so experiment. Heat this sugar solution on another stove burner in a medium-sized pot. Then you need to prepare a small saucepan of water with your lids for your third stove burner. The lids should be brand new, and you'll need 7 of them for each load in the canner. Heat the water to a simmer. You want the lids to be nice and hot and sterile. Now you have to skin the peaches. You can either do this by hand with a knife, or you can scald the peaches to get the skins to fall off. To do this, you need to prepare another hot water pot on the 4th stove burner. Drop the peaches into the simmering pot for about 1 minute. Remove them and dunk them into a pan of cold water to stop the cooking. Then use your hands to rub the skins off. They should slide off easily. Discard the peach skins and any other bad spots that are on the peach. Using a knife, cut the peach in half. The pit should release easily. Discard the pit. Then place the peach halves into a pan filled with water until you're ready to fill all the jars. This will keep them from turning brown and oxidizing. Once you've cut up enough peaches to fill your 7 mason quart jars, prepare your space for filling the jars. I like to place a towel on the table. Using a tool called a jar grabber, remove one of the mason jars from the canner and turn it right side up on the workspace. Place a canning funnel on top of the jar. Using a spoon or your fingers, drop the peaches into the jar until it's filled to about 1 inch from the top. Then using a ladle, fill that jar with a simple sugar solution from the stove. Fill to within a 1/2 inch of the top. Then run a knife or spoon around the jar inside to release any air bubbles that may be trapped. Remove the funnel and wipe the jar with a lint-free cloth around the threads and the rim. You want to remove anything that would prevent a tight seal from forming. I usually use a wet washcloth. Take a lid from the pot of hot lids using a jar magnet or just a fork. Place the lid onto the mason jar and then screw on a jar band. These jar bands do not need to be hot. Place the jar back into the canner in the rack. Repeat until all 7 quarts are filled with peaches. Then carefully lower the canner rack into the canner. You should make sure that there's about 1 inch of water covering the quarts. Turn up the heat and bring the canner to a boil. Now this is important. Once it comes to a boil, that's when you start the clock. Boil the quarts for 25 minutes. Once the timer goes off, remove the canner from the heat. Lift up the canning rack carefully so you don't burn yourself, and using the jar grabber, pull out the quarts one by one and place them on a heat-safe surface free of drafts overnight. The jars will ping over the next hour as they seal. Check the jars in the morning by pushing down on the lids. If they bounce back and pop, they have not sealed properly and you will need to put them into the refrigerator and you can eat them right away. Label your jars with the year so you know how old they are and store them in your basement. And there you have it. You've just canned your first batch of peaches. To learn more about our farm and our CSA, visit our website, sharedlegacyfarms.com.